So we're going to talk today about is field service. I'm going to start off by looking at productivity. Productivity, by the simplest equation, is just simply output divided by resources. And in our industry, manpower or labor is probably the most precious resource that we have. Greg Wallace taught me that a couple of years ago, and we've been working hard to try to maximize our most precious resource, our manpower. And I found this study that I thought was pretty interesting. They looked at all industries and they compared it to construction when it comes to the output per employee. And you can see that we're not trending so well when it comes to the productivity that other industries are gaining versus what we've been able to do in the construction industry. As a matter of fact, it actually gets worse as we go further in closer years. But the one way to look at it is the off-site manufacturing of components versus on-site, and the value of each hour that that employee adds to a to the site or to the organization or to the customer. And you can see that our on-site construction activities and our off-site construction activities, whether it's in the office or on the field, they add quite a bit to that project. And when you look at the labor costs on how construction is faring versus standard business sector, or even versus manufacturing, ours is increasing more than any of the other industries. And that's an issue. That means we really need to work hard to maximize the amount of time and efficiency that we have with our most precious resource, labor. So when you think about labor, naturally we think about guys out there driving around and going from job site to job site. If you're in the distribution side of things, obviously they're making deliveries. Even if you're a manufacturer, you have sales reps and maybe tech reps on the road on a regular basis. And with that driving becomes, there's inherent risks of running over grandma. You know, there's downtime if you have a vehicle that is disabled, or just simply going from site A to site B, worrying about traffic or weather. They're expensive. And all of that time going from point A to point B, that's non-productive. You're not getting much out of that. Another problem that we have in the industry is inventory loss. What's happening with all of these products? As Greg Wallace says, a lot of you contractors could be funding the underground mafia. And this is something that we're working towards trying to put a cap on, so we don't have all of our materials going out the door doing side work all the time. And then, of course, we have customer satisfaction, and that's incredibly important to us because we want to be able to communicate in the language and the way customers want to be communicated with. And in today's day and age, with all of these different forms of communication, what they call omni-channel communications, there's different preferences. Some customers want a phone call. Others just say, text me. Some, they like it in an email. Some of them will communicate back to you on social media, perhaps, and you need to be able to respond to them in whatever preference and whatever communication channel that they want. There's an old quote that says it takes months to find a customer, but it only takes seconds to lose them. And you have to think about how your field service technicians are playing into that. So when we think about those customers that have a really, or the organizations that have a really robust field service structure or software or program, we realize that there's a couple of distinct advantages. They get better first-time fix rates because they're well prepared for that project when they get there. They get more service calls completed in a given time period. They were able to reduce travel times and cost, and there's less wear and tear on the vehicle. So when we look at these advantages, we think, okay, well, what are we achieving? Or what different pieces of software do we look at to try to help us with that? And the first thing we look at is optimized scheduling. How can we get the right tech in the right place at the right time so that the customer is getting the resource that they expect, they're able to fix what they need to fix, and they have everything that they need. The next thing is going to be inventory management, making sure that we have all the products, that they're either there already or that we're bringing them with us. And then, of course, mobile productivity. How are we able to gather the communications from the job site and get that back into our software system or to the office so that everybody's on the same page in real time so that we can deliver on our contracts? What is the SLA that we have to live up to? Are we able to meet that? And is everyone planning to make sure that we're able to deliver exactly what we promised? And of course, at the end, we're wrapping all of that up into a strong customer communications and make sure that we are delivering exactly what we promised and that the customer knows what's going on. So Kelly Roofing, We use Microsoft Dynamics 365 for field service. That is the software that we've employed. And I'll run through just a couple little screenshots so you can get an idea of what that looks like. We have the field, you're welcome, Greg. We have the field service portal right on our phone. It could be a tablet, it could be a laptop. In the field, we just use phones. We deploy iPhones to our field techs and our supervisors. And this is just a quick screen that shows you the main functionalities. Of course, we have the jobs. This is a list of all the projects that are specific to that field tech. The bookings, which would be assignments or actual scheduled events. And then the work orders would be the holding of information for a job that controls the bookings. And I'll go a little bit more into that in detail. But you can see on the jobs, we're just going to list maybe the name of the job, what type of job it is, and the dollar amount for it. Then we're going to go into each one of those jobs. You can catch more details about it. You can catch, for instance, the customer's contact information, who you're supposed to meet on site, what you might be expecting to do as far as the work to perform. And then on the work order, we have all of the information on what products might be used. We might be able to track timing when we start and stop, and using GPS and geofencing to help us to make sure that we're Department of Labor wage and hour certified, that the guys are being paid for the time that they're actually on site, and then maybe a different rate for traveling, or that, you know, the moment they launch from the shop and then the moment they come in, that time starts and stops properly. And then of course routing. So it's one thing to be able to say, hey, here's your next job, just head out to it and get started. And there's another to use some of this computer-assisted GPS guidance that takes into consideration traffic patterns, for instance, and maybe doesn't route them the most comfortable way that they're used to, but routes them a better way that helps them avoid the traffic so that they're more productive when they get to the job site. And what I love about this software is a piece that we're working on right now with a company called Glimpse that allows us to tell the customer where we are, when we're going to be there. Now, if you've used Lyft or Uber, I'm sure you've seen this, where you have the little car that's running around on the map, and when your car is on the way, you can see that they're coming down the street and they're going to turn the corner and come pick you up, and they'll be there in a few minutes. Well, Glimpse actually provides that service for these companies, and that's something that we're able to leverage into our field service software. So a customer can see exactly how long it takes us to get from where we are, the last job, or from the shop directly to their place. And on the right-hand side, this is a typical drive for me where I leave my fiance's house in Fort Lauderdale and I drive to the office, you know, the very next morning. And in this case, it looks like it's going to take an hour and 43 minutes. Now I can do that in about an hour and 20, but that's beside the point. And then what's great is you can have a way to get your techs to report back what their status is. You know, I'm in progress, I'm on my way, and that can trigger workflows that will then send out those notifications to the customer if they're going to take a break or if the job is done. It could also trigger additional notifications to maybe invoice the customer at that time, or call for a survey just to see how they did, or maybe send that out via text. And then let's say they're on the job and they've run into something that wasn't part of the original quote, and they want to create a change order. We call them add-ons. They can just quickly enter the name, enter the amount, take some pictures, you know, and then upload it. And this way, everyone back at the office, including the customer, knows that we're all on the same page. We're all agreed upon it. They can even sign right on the screen to say that they accept that work order or that change order. And if there's a follow-up that is required, let's say, for instance, there's something that we ran into that sales might want to come back out and take a look at. Well, we can do daily job site reports that update notes to the customer, but then also update notes internally so that we can keep track of those notes. And if we need the sales team to come back and take a look at maybe another section of the roof that wasn't part of our original agreement, we can simply answer a couple questions, toggle the follow-up, and that creates a case internally for someone to dispatch the the sales team to come out and take a look again. And then of course, when the work is all done, a simple signature from the client that's uploaded automatically would show them that that work has been accepted and they're happy with what was performed. So now what does that look like when you're in the office? we obviously want to maximize our productivity. So what we look at is a schedule board that has on the bottom a list of all of the jobs, and then we have each one of our resources, and it's color coded so we can see the status of that tech. We can see where they're going to start and stop. We know based on the colors and the codes their skill, whether they have certification to install a certain roof system or not. We can see by distance how long it's going to take them to get to the next stop, and of course by availability to make sure that they are available and they're not on vacation, or the job that they're on isn't going to go longer, so that we can maximize the time and efficiency. Through map view on the left-hand side, we can drag and drop a push pin right onto the scheduling board. So let's say, for instance, a tech is in an area and they're going to finish this job a little earlier than what it was expected, and they want another project that they can go and do a little bit of maintenance. They got 3 or 4 hours left at the end of the day. You can see geographically where they're located and pick one of those push pins, drag it onto that resource, and then boom, it'll go ahead and schedule that for them. If you have items that are unscheduled, you can see them down at the bottom, and those will be dragged up onto the board. Or you can use what's called the route optimization engine that takes computer algorithms and AI and actually looks at the skill level, the SLA agreement with the customer, the certifications of the techs, the proximity to the work order or territory fencing that you have on them, and then does these random calculations, millions of them, to put the schedule in a way that it says, if you do all of your jobs in this order at these times, you will get the most amount of productivity out of your existing operation. And what's interesting about this is, we're a small organization. We have 12 full-time service techs. When we service tech teams, they're 3-man teams each, so 36 people in service. And when we implemented this software, at the time, we were thinking we were going to hire 2 or 3 more teams to be able to handle our goals and the amount of work that we were given from our customers. When we put this in place, we realized that that wasn't the case. We actually idled one of our trucks until we were able to build up the marketing and customers to feed it because of the efficiencies that we gained. So to recap, the advantages, for instance, of having this interactive scheduling board, well, it gives you a real-time view of what's going on and enables your dispatchers to respond quickly, whether it's a customer request specialization, whether it's a cancellation or an SLA agreement that you have to meet. And it allows the back office to perform all your tasks so the work gets completed efficiently. For those using the mobile app, it allows you to have field techs to look professional and organized, to be there on time and to have what they need, and empowers the field techs to make sure that they have the right equipment for the job or materials, and that the field techs follow the very efficient and standardized process. In other words, when they come to the job site, you might have a requirement that they meet with the client first or the building manager to introduce themselves and to look at where the problem is. And the only way that they can see the rest of the project or to close it out or log it in is to get that authorization from that customer to say, hey, I need your approval that you've showed this to me before I go up on the roof and start working on it. And key benefits to automation or semi-automated scheduling is you can rank the jobs and the resources based on your skill level or SLAs, the service level agreements. It allows you to optimize using the closest technicians and assign them to the most qualified technicians, all those jobs. So let's look just quickly into the future and see what that's going to look like. And I think eventually what we'll probably end up seeing as our workforce continues to age, we're going to have to rapidly train a younger generation to be able to do the things that we're doing today with an older workforce. And what we're going to lose is that knowledge that comes with an aging workforce. And what we want to be able to do is to keep those who are maybe it's not physically desirable for them to be on the roof anymore, but where that knowledge can still continue to be tapped into if we put them into an office environment or setting to allow them to use that knowledge to help the new guys or the techs that are out in the field maybe don't have that level of experience. So here's an example of a technician using a HoloLens product that is an augmented reality where they see the real world, but then they also see a virtual world built into it where they can actually dissect the building and have the tech in the field showing what they're seeing, and the two of them interacting together to solve that problem or issue and say, hey, this is how it should be done. This is what I suggest. And what that does is it allows the knowledge from the experienced person to transfer it on to the newer techs so that they're able to be super productive in the field. Your customers are taken care of, and it's done at a lower price. So that's my 10-minute tech talk, and I think I might have a minute or two left, so if there's any questions, I'll be happy to field them.
Jim, this is Dale. You had a number of questions come up. Let me read a couple of them. You had, in no particular order, Tom Whitaker wanted to know what have you been challenged with as you implemented the system? For question number one.
I would say the hardest thing is, of course, to get user adoption. So what we did is we took away all the papers that everybody was relying on and used to, and all of the job jackets are now delivered through the app. So the only way they're going to get their job or paid or any of that stuff is they have to use it. And I know that's kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid, but in our experience, that was probably the best thing that worked. But that was also the most difficult and most challenging thing, was to get everybody to use it.
You had to force it. Let's see, Jay Shear asks, Ken, are you using the schedule optimizer? And if so, pros and cons, question mark?
Okay, good question. So I turned it on initially when we first got it, and it did through the schedule haywire, because you need AI to build up the skill levels, the certifications, the territories. You need to program a lot of that stuff. And that was back before I was just little gung-ho and didn't realize that it needed the time to build those things in. Once we have them, now that we have them in, yes, we are going live in the first quarter of next year. It looks like the February timeframe. So I'll be able to answer that in the future a little bit more accurately. I'd say right now, just make sure you have everything set before you turn that on, especially if you have customer communications linked to it, because all of a sudden it changed the entire schedule and hundreds of customers got this brand new schedule date and they were not happy. So my first initial experience was not the best, but it was my own fault, and we know what to do now when we launch it the second time.
A couple of more, Ken. Karen Inman wants to know, did you use a consultant, Microsoft consultant? And Ryan Groff wants to know how much, do you mind talking about how much you invested in this, time and money?
Sure. Yeah. So yes, for the first question, we definitely used a consultant. Although I can program this stuff, it's not my primary responsibility. So I absolutely will hand that off to the professionals and let them do it. And I can tell you about the cost. The cost for initial deployment for us was $44,000, and it took about a month, maybe 6 weeks from initial start till it was deployed and in the field, and all of our techs were trained. And I will caveat that by saying we did have a pretty robust CRM system that this is piggybacking off of. So 44,000 is just the field service piece of this, and all of the devices and all of the training and the partner to program it.
One last question, Ken. Rick D'Amato asks, how long have you been invested in this program? What's been the time frame to today?
We first deployed field service back when it was Field One, which was a third-party company that was just a partner of Microsoft's. That was in the early part of 2016. I think we started our project in February. Like mid-March we launched, and in the beginning of 2017, Microsoft bought that company and now has since integrated it as part of their core offering. It is an additional fee per user per month, but the transition was fairly seamless because we were already experienced with it. That price to go for each individual tech, depending on what plan you're on and how much access you give them, is going to run you probably about $35 to $40 a month.
Tom Whitaker wants to know, how do you calculate ROI, Ken? Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yeah, so I use the Greg Wallace theory of ROI, and that is how much revenue your company generates off of each employee. And I think back in the day, Greg likes to use the term 100,000 rule, which is if you're doing okay, you should be able to get $100,000 worth of revenue out of each employee annually. And anything above that, or the higher you go above that, the more efficient you're running your organization. So that's one of the more non-conventional ways that, it's something I stole from Greg and that we try to use here. Conventionally, obviously, you're looking at how much revenue per crew. You're looking at profit per crew and those type of things. When you look at how much time you're saving and how much additional revenue they're able to do by having a very visual automated scheduling system, it's a no-brainer. There's no question that it's well worth the investment.